Right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Oops. Well, I haven't started and there's an accident. Okay, while we get that cleaned up later. So thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Nigel. I am from the brand and community team here at SGInnovate. So I can see a few familiar faces with us here today. Thank you for joining us again. But for those who are here with us for the first time, just really quickly about SGInnovate. So we want to work with the entrepreneurial scientists to build deep tech startups in order to solve globally relevant problems in areas such as healthcare, sustainability, and also financial inclusion. So of course, as an investor, we invest money, but it doesn't stop there. We also help them to break down barriers in technical matters, talent, in adoption, market, and legislation barriers. And the ultimate goal that we have is to better the lives of humanity. And so 5G is widely discussed this year, and we're here today to learn more about it and how it brings new opportunities and possibilities to numerous industries, from automotive to healthcare. And the adoption of 5G tech is also expected to skyrocket next year, with operators planning to launch up to 4 5G networks. While this is really exciting, it is also important to study and analyze the impact it has on the landscape and the various stakeholders involved. So today we are very happy to have partnered with NUSSSI Smart Systems Institute to bring together top industry experts who will share with us their experience, insights, and knowledge on this topic. So now, before we begin the evening, I would like to pass on the mic to Kelvin from NUSSSI, who would like to say a few words. Kelvin, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Nigel. Do you have a clicker, is it? This is. Okay, thank you. Yeah, actually, the main show is the panelist who's going to be here later, and Prof. Wee, who is the director of Smart System Institute, will be sharing with you what we are doing in the NUS. Also, of course, we're happy to have a Huawei here. They are always on a very hot seat, so they will have another seat here later. The hot seat is because, I'm just joking. The hot seat is really hot because they are very hot in terms of 5G. They also have Haidilao, which is hot pot. That's why I call it hot seat. Okay, so ask him how he turned on 5G at Haidilao later. Maybe you can enjoy the experience. But I thought for those who are new to this whole series of deep tech talks and forums with SGInnovate, I'd like to thank SGInnovate also for allowing us to have one such talk every quarter. And started the first quarter on AI and fintech, followed by AI and healthcare. And the third one was actually AI and data privacy. And this fourth one was really the brainchild of Prof. Wee, saying that, hey, we must have 5G to wrap up the year. So we are very happy to have this chance to have this session today. I just want to share with you a couple of slides just to give an update to those who are new to what is SSI all about. All right, we are smart, we have systems in place, and we are also an institute, which means we do a lot of research and translation to market. So in our collaboration with the different stakeholders, we have universities like Tsinghua, Southampton, and Keio University of Japan. Right? If you want to know more, we have a website. Go check it out. Tell us what you would like to work with fast on. We have virtual reality. We have social robots. We also have Living Lab in NUS, and it's also called the digital twin. Because other than the physical NUS buildings and the campus amenities, we do have a digital version of it on the internet, right? So it's virtual NUS. So there's a lot of things happening. In fact, under the leadership of Prof. Wee, over 10 years already, right, Prof? More than that. No. Oh, sorry, 7 years, 7 years. But the first IRC, International Research Center, was about 10 years old in SSI. So we have a lot happening, and you will get to see more as you visit our website. I think I'm going to just wrap up with also another achievement that we have in Suzhou. As you're aware that in China, 5G is big, AI is big, so it's big data, right? So there is a NUS AI center in Suzhou. And in that center, there is a lot of new development in AI, training, as well as internship that's happening. So if you are visiting Suzhou or intend to land in China, please let us know, because this is also one pathway for you to work with us, right? Okay, I think these are probably all the slides I have. And I'll now hand over to Nigel for him to introduce the moderator, Victor from SGInnovate, as well as the panelists. Oh, I should introduce. Oh, sorry, I will run it. There's a presentation first, so that you can't ask questions immediately. So Prof, we will be the first to present on 5G. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'm Beng. I've been with NUS for 30 years, since 1989. Has been a long time. So today, my 10 minutes will be based on these two papers. First one is a short one, so you don't have time, just read the short one. The long one is 20 pages long. Provides all the details, the survey on what the technology is all about, to applications, and how this will disrupt or create opportunities for those who want to do startup. Another news is such that we graduated Apache Singa, the first top-level Apache project from Singapore, the only one and the only one from Singapore. So it's a deep learning platform. It's open source. You can go in, take a look as well. I've been working on A, B, C, D, E, A, AI, B, blockchain, C, cloud, D for data, E now is H. It's forced, because as we grow older, we are expected to know everything. Life is tough. So today, I'll quickly cover what is 5G will bring you, some of the use cases. I won't touch on the technology side, but this side, as you can see, there are a few areas that we have to evolve as well from technology viewpoint. But the main purpose is to tell you the difference, and you can see yourself what are opportunities. 4G bring about e-commerce. So today, people do not go to shop, they order from home, and you have that experience. It brings you TikTok, Douyin, and all those video streaming and all those stuff. 5G, because of the latencies, low latencies, ultra reliable network, you're going to have more things coming. So if look forward, maybe 3 years down the road, when 5G in full implementations may bring you some of the new businesses that can disrupt current business models. So quickly, what are 5G? So these are the differences. As you can see, when I take pictures from other sources, so we credited the source. So you can see that the differences between 4G and 5G, latencies goes up by 10 times, data traffic, and then also the connections densities. Instead of 100,000 per kilometers, now we're going to have about 1 million connections per square kilometers. Huge number of connectivities, and also much wider, much more efficient spectrum. That's why people expect, once it's in full implementations, of course now everyone is still testing. Most of the numbers are basically not the real benchmarking numbers, because some of these numbers are non-standards. So what it brings about enhanced mobile broadband. This is our next generation's mobile network. It provide massive connectivities, LLURs of communications, low latencies, ultra reliable communication networks that everyone is expecting. It has been 10 years since we got 4G. Even before the full implementation of 5G, researchers and scientists have started to work on the protocol for 6G. So definitely 5G will come about, just a matter of time. When it will be fully implemented, yet that depends on how much money they're going to burn and what sort of benefits they will bring to the society. So it rides on the massive multiple input, multiple output sort of protocols, and it has a large formations of antennas for multiplexing, for multipath and so on. Therefore, you have huge bandwidth because of that. And of course, it made use of the millimeter wave. Instead of just a very narrow bands, now you have much, much bigger bands. And in fact, people are talking about private network of certain band at certain areas for some big companies. For example, Singapore is too small, but in big country, that is possible. People test it out, and suburb and big companies, they might want to have their own bandwidth and to have their own network. And that is possible. And we are back to peer-to-peer. So we have a device-device connections in 5G that's expected. And instead of just machine virtualizations that today we have, we're going to have much more network virtualizations. You're going to slice the network such that one slice could be for this application, next slice could be for the next applications. Of course, all this means that we have a much bigger surface for attack. So security will be a big problem itself. Whatever goodies that you have, you're going to have some of the bad things that come along with it. Therefore, these are the challenges that researchers like us have to solve as the time progresses. So here, if you look at 5G, so we have edge devices and we have cloud. So when the cloud it goes nearer, then we go to edge, what we call the edge computing. Edge computing will catch up. We will push more informations to the cloudlet near the edge, near the base stations, rather than at the data centers far away. So it will be faster, will be improve the latencies as well. And this is just some simple measure, the one we did in Budapest on a 5G phone. So what we took is about 550 compared upload link compared to about 86. Suppose you use 4G. So the difference is about 5 to 8 times, the differences. And it's an asymmetric speed. It has a high download, but a very low upload. It's about 20 compared to, say, 540s. And at this moment, the measurement is based on the current 5G network. Some of the test network use a non-standalone mode. So once you use a standalone mode, then it will be much better off. And of course, operators today do still prioritize, just like today, download versus the upload. It's very hard for you to upload. So for example, you want to push the file, it will be much slower than you download the file. Now we look at some applications and use cases. What will come along? So smart drones, remote work, automotive, smart cars. So for autonomous vehicles, that will speed up the development as well. Because of 5G, you're going to have more information being exchanged that will help to speed up the AI communications to the cars, to the vehicles. And smart cities, you're going to have more and more information being pushed, more cameras, more surveillance, and real-time feedback, and so on. Healthcare, you're going to have telemedicine, telesurgeries, and other things, such as the Industry 4.0 will be sped up as well. Now, we look at some applications. This is a virtual realities or augmented realities. Because of differences in speed, you're going to have more information being exchanged. For example, for games, you're going to have a reality. Instead of reality shows being held in the theater, today you might have competition online. Just like today, you have TikTok, people start to stream videos and all those, but that could be one situation, reality shows on 5G, competition. He already said 1 more minute. So as other devices, personal AI assistants like smart helmet, smart glasses, that again, because of latencies, because lots of information is being exchanged, either you take it from the server or serverlets, the AI information, decisions, and all those other informations that can be downloaded. and healthcare. So here, that will be split up. Instead of everyone goes to the hospitals, maybe can stay at home, monitor through the home devices. That's what we are doing as well on the 3H, hyperglycemia, high glucose, hypertension's problem. Try to reduce that by encouraging patients to stay at home. It's a chronic disease, but you have to monitor constantly, have to make sure that people take medicines and so on. And of course, telesurgery. That not quite applicable in Singapore, but for example, in a big country, quite often the doctors have more experience and better trained in the bigger or better hospitals than those in the remote cities. Then this will become feasible and possible as well. Car will be highly affected because of sensors. Today, if in a Tesla, you realize that the Tesla car, as you drive, it senses the surrounding. It takes the speed limit from the signboard and try to reflect it onto your car rather than rely on your navigator, the information captured inside the systems. So it's constantly update itself. So for example, in this case, there could be a map update because as you the car two pass each other, they could exchange trajectories, can exchange informations. Then with that information sharing, you can update the road conditions, the weather conditions, and many other things can be exchanged through the device-to-device exchange mechanisms. Unmanned areas, vehicles, and so on. So this, and again, will be possible. You can use drones to monitor, and drones will connect and talk to each other, share information, and do the processing together. So plenty of opportunities there. And in fact, this could be a good way to monitor the crop plantations, and this will be those who are into investment to look at how bad it is this year. You're going to hedge against certain plantations and so on. Smart cities, everything will be affected from where we are to what we eat, what car we take, securities, rubbish collections, different stations of different type of rubbish, and so on. So all these will affect our daily life, and that will help to improve our life. So these are technologies that will be affected by 5G. Edge computing is one of them, Internet of Things, and eventually we'll have Internet of Bodies. Means that as we walk, we have plenty of sensors in our bodies. For those with a heart problem, with whatever problem that we need to take measurements, we might have some sensors planted in our bodies, and that will transmit the data out and so on for analytics. Data management. So today, when you look at iPhone already has the features for you to keep your healthcare records in your iPhone. In US, some hospitals work with the iPhone such that they can synchronize the healthcare records with the patient's iPhone with certain healthcare standard. And that create millions of small databases, what we call the micro databases. And of course, today people are very sticky about the data. They own the data. They think that the data should not be sold by, for example, the vendor. They should be the one who sell the data and make profit from the data. So that we have this privacy preserving. So AI will be affected because of the small edge devices. Then you can see that because data is being distributed, I control my data. Therefore, I'm not going to share your data with you, then AI will become federated AI. Federated learning, personalized AI, because I push a global model, then you modify the global model locally to accommodate your own data, your own patterns, and so on. Security will be a big problem, as said, so we need to address that problem. We need to have a network verifications, models, specification model, and so on to make sure that whenever we introduce this new slice, it will be safe. And this is just an example. So suppose you have from cloud all the way to your edge devices, could be your iPhone, could be your wearables, could be any micro databases. And as I said earlier, this will be a current example. So this is your iPhone now. iPhone can keep your healthcare records, then that is your micro database. And your database is your complete healthcare record, just like for Singaporeans, for locals, we have an account that keep tracks of the healthcare records. Eventually, that healthcare record stored under one location. But in this case, will be stored in the phone, in your edge device. But as you go to different hospitals, different clinics, then we have to synchronize with the clinics and doctors, or let the doctors look at the data. So as you can see how it affects the edge computing, federated learning, security and privacy, and all those technologies will be affected. That will again create plenty of opportunities in terms of services, in terms of applications. Then of course, there will be plenty of new applications. So these are the disrupted domains likely to be disrupted by 5G, machine learning, security, blockchain, data management. We have micro data management, network, because of network slicing, we have a software-defined network, or network functions, virtualizations. Then we need network verifications, edge computing, how to push the computations more efficiently to the edge devices or to cloudlets near the edges. Okay, thank you. I'll take questions later on.
Okay. Next is Guan from Huawei.
Thank you. Can we switch the slide, please? Okay, just let me introduce myself. My name is Teck Guan. I'm a Singaporean, right? Although I work in Huawei. I've been in Huawei for close to 8.5 years now. By next May, I'll be 9 years. Right, so I see a lot of faces. You should know who we are, right? And then just now, Kevin mentioned that we are always on the hot seat. It is true. Should I go up there? So give me a minute because the laptop need a pin, need my thumbprint. So Murphy's Law, anything that can happen will happen, right? Sometimes I attend a session, no sound, video cannot play, this and that. Okay, so yeah. So I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for Huawei Cloud Asia Pacific region. So my job previously covers a lot in terms of smart city development, 5G use cases especially. Probably just now has shared with you a lot of the technical parts of it. So later part, I'm going to quickly cover the slides. And the second part is basically to show you a lot more use cases, right? So the topics for me to cover today is really this thing called a new conference of technology that shapes the future. Today, where are we now? Are we here? Are we here? You look at the key technology that transform our society and civilizations, from the very early stage of agriculture to electricity to communication. And actually we are in the eras of these transformations, to the new century. The 4 technology that will shape our new future will be 5G, AI, cloud, and IoT. So when you look at this new conference, right, what we are really looking at is cloud. In fact, it's really like, you look at airplanes when you take off, right? Cloud is really the runway. And the other three technologies are basically the engines that propel, the aircraft, to the sky. So this is a new formula, cloud plus AI plus 5G plus IoT. That is a new conference of technologies that we are looking at today. Okay, so by 2025, all countries and industry will be powered by the new conference, right? So I think I better stand here. It's easier for me to look at you guys as well as the slides, right? Okay, so when you look at this combination of these four technology, cloud is definitely at the center, right? And then each of these technology like AI, we call, you look at it, it's like you have got some of this intelligence built in, right, onto the AI itself. Now 5G, just you mentioned about low latency, high bandwidth, high reliability. IoT is talking about visual awareness. You can actually create any awareness with all these sensors, right? So what we can see is the combination of these four technology really will bring up very new ideas or new features or new technology that allow you to innovate further. So for example, when you talk about autonomous car, in today we use 4G, we use all this technology, and it still hit people. So what it's actually seeing is that the technology is insufficient, right? So the 5G will actually come in to fill in some of the gaps. And then when you look at, say, AR, say VR. VR today, very excited, right? You put on VR 360 degree. But then there's a cable link all the way to the box. You cannot move. The 5G will actually take away the box. Directly put a chip into your VR glass, you can move around, become mobile. So some of these technology actually allow you to do that. All right? Now, the new conference basically create new experience, new application, and new industry. I just listed out here for you to look at. So for example, when you talk about new experience, now the mobile internets, right, today I just now tried the speed test here. I think about 10 meg max. I don't know about you guys. You use speed test in this building, it's about 10 meg upload, download speed. Professor, we just now mentioned that the test of the 5G is about 500 meg. We have an AI lab just set up. We have a 5G network, standalone network, currently set up in a lab in Singapore. We tested the speed now is 1.2 gig. Downlink, uplink is 150. And that is a real test based on our 5G phone. Which 5G phone? Is the Mate 20X 5G version. So those are actually things that we are doing. And I will cover a little bit on the AI lab later, right? So new application. So you talk about, next one is on new application itself. So things like VR, Ultra HD videos. Before I come in, I just tested one of the 4K videos on the VR in our lab, because our lab is going to launch soon, this week. As you test, you realize that 4K is not enough. When you do a 4K videos, you put on the VR glass, right? The resolution is still not high enough. And you require at least an 8K or 16K now. Now imagine 8K and 16K wireless, what kind of transmission speed that you need? You definitely need 5G for you to achieve that. But when you are able to achieve that, the experience is really different. Today with the 4K, when I look at it, I say it's wonderful, no? I have a drone that is flying on the sky, and then when I put on a VR glass, it's like I'm floating, I can feel that I'm floating. Okay, so those experiences are good, okay? So the other area is about industry itself, new industry itself. So for example, vertical farming, smart industry, that is industry 4.0, energy as well as real-time media, right? These are all made possible, right, through some of this new technology conference. Now with the new technology, with the new experience, new application, the new conference of these services require new diverse architecture. So I actually put in here about 4 areas that we are working on. The first one that you see is really multi-architecture computing, right? Today, most of our cloud out there, I think most of you use AWS Azure, only x86. We have been putting in the Ascend, which is the AI chip, plus Kunpeng, which is actually the new generation ARM server. Why we are doing this? Because we are on the hot seat, right? So we need to innovate. Are we going to continue? Is the company going to go away? The answer is, as of it is now, it's not, because I'm standing here to talk to you, right? Company is still okay, right? And then the next one is multi-granularity, right? This one is talking about using different types. You can run VM, you can run container, you can run other stuff, like for example, serverless or bare metal server, or actually running the traditional batch mode. So now you have a very different types of resources that you can utilize, right? Because of the different needs with the new conference of technology come in, you can utilize the AI with 5G, with IoT, on a smart city environment, or a safe city environment, on a smart industry environment. Each of these environment has a very dynamic requirement, and then all these different kind of granularities of resources will allow you to mix and match and apply, to the right scenarios of what you're trying to create, right? And the next one is multi-dimensional acceleration. So when you're talking about 5G, you're elevating the current usage per user. Imagine just I mentioned about 8K, 16K video. You're talking about megabits or even gigabits levels to your mobile device. That is significantly require very super high bandwidth. Now the bandwidth is only the super highway. The minute you hit your data center, your cloud, all this innovation is needed. The compute resources need to be faster, the storage need to be bigger, and your network need to be faster. So all these are the multi-dimensional accelerations that we are working on. Because when one side of things are moving higher, better, the rest all have to improve together, so that you can actually have a balanced solution, right? And the last one is multi-layer scheduling. This is talking about cloud edge devices, right? So with the application that come in, of course, everybody will like, say, okay, autonomous vehicle. I have the vehicle, I have all the sensor in there, I link to the cloud. Because the latency is so low, everything is perfect. I only have device, I only have, cloud. But the reality is, that may not be sufficient in certain scenarios. Because the car is a very complex, environment. What we are doing now today is that we have the cloud at the back end, we have the 5G to provide the latency. At the same time, each car today, we are exploring using a mobile data center. The mobile data center is built based on the SN310 chip, all right? And this is actually a mobile data center that we mount on every car. So in future, when you are driving a new generation cars, right, each car has got a data center inside. And why is that important is because there's so many things that you need to take care of. And sending everything to the central is not feasible. There will be a lot of things that you need to have a very quick response, real-time response, within the local scenario itself, when you are actually driving the car, okay? So, just want to show you some of these are the real use cases, right? Because I think easier for me to share with you use cases than just keep telling you, right? So I have a total of about 6 use cases here for how you utilize AI. It's a combination of using AI alone or using cloud plus AI or cloud plus AI plus 5G, as well as cloud plus AI plus 5G plus IoT. These 4 different technology. So first one I want to share with you is this. This is actually, the first one is the saving the rainforest by listening. Now, you never notice how powerful it is just by listening to the jungle. When you say listening to the jungle, what it means is that you constantly record, pull down the sound that you have, and through our cloud, right, we have a model arc platform that allows us to do some kind of voice recognition. So when you pull down this sound, you can actually recognize the chainsaw sound, gunfire sound, trucks driving, car driving sound, the animal sound. So by being able to identify all these sounds, you can see what kind of wonder you can do, right? You feed into the big data. Now you can protect the jungle. If you have a 3G or 4G network or 5G network that you created, the sensor automatically provide feedback as they listen to all these sounds. First thing is, for species, right, you will know where is their present in the jungle. If you see chainsaw sound in a particular location, and that is a protected jungle area, you know this is illegal activity is going on. Same thing for gunfire or that. So just by listening to the sound, right, in the jungle, it actually can create so many important applications. The other one you see on the right here is the green magician in the desert, right? This is actually talking about how to use a robot to plant trees, right? Planting of trees, and you know how to avoid some of the obstacles like hard ground, try to avoid the rods and all that. And one more example here is the ABB. Right? We work with ABB using the robotic arms, using the AIs to recognize some of the garbage, and then do some sorting, right? Another example here, really close to our heart is really the weighing machine, right? So what we did was, we trained this machine here to be able to recognize fruits. How many of you go to buy fruits from the supermarket? In Australia, there's this problem, right? Australia is all manpower. So the supermarket, only a few people, right? So if you buy fruits, it's up to you, right? If I get a mango, I can go and do my price tag. If you're honest enough, you'll put a price tag for mango. If you're not honest enough, you put a price tag on mango using Apple, right? So a $5 become 50 cents. You go to the cashier, nobody's going to check. So you are selling constantly your mango at 50 cents. This machine, no need of people. Once you actually train it using model arcs, right, it is able to do the job. Okay? So this is actually one example. You train centrally, and then you deploy it to the edge. So this is the what I call it, just now some of the example I show you, right? The cloud, you know, the edge and the device. So this is actually processing at the edge itself. Some other example that is, the video is not running now is because this is actually one of the logistic company. Yep, 1 minute, yeah. They keep throwing stuff around because for logistics company, you know, especially the single days, right? So much of these goods they need to send. And previously they use cameras to record out all the videos, and they need about 400 people to really go through to make sure that everybody is doing the right thing, everybody behaves. Now, 400 people to do the video screening, a lot of people, right? So what happened now is they do AI. So AI will be able to detect like who actually has a violation. So now they only keep a small group of people to just handle the violation cases itself. So this is what AI can actually help to do. Okay, 1 minute. So I'm going to move on to cover some of the 5G related use cases. So what you see here is, I'm going to quickly run through again. The first one is about remote driving control. So if you put sensor around, the person, the driver, can be sitting in the comfort of this aircon room and remotely operating all these vehicles, right? It can be a normal, you know, vehicles, or it can be a plant, or it can be a truck. Okay, so these are actually what, when you talk about ultra low latency, URLLC just now, Professor we mentioned, that is actually one of the key features to enable some of these functions, right? This application. Okay, and then AGV, logistic, right? Is actually more the AGV itself. So some of these truck that you see now, some of these devices, this is actually a smart port solution in Yangsangang in Shanghai. So everything now is all, you know, without people. We have been supporting with the telco to support PSA now to work on some of this AGV, because they have these cranes, right? Crane moving around. Today they have all the fiber. So as the more you move, the more fiber shakes around, the more maintenance you need to do. Every time you do the maintenance, relay the fiber, it's a downtime for the crane. It's a disruption to the operation. So by changing all this to 5G, because 5G is talking about gigabits, right? So it's really a wireless fiber. And with that change, right, it actually allows you to make things more reliable, and then minimize the downtime. And at the same time, with the ultra low latency, you are able to also use some of these autonomous vehicles to do the necessary operation for the ports. Okay. Next one, you see, just now you mentioned about healthcare, right? So this is actually an example talking about the robotic arm doing the scan of the person, but the doctor can be thousands of miles away. For a large country like China, this is actually possible. Singapore, 30 minutes, you can reach any location, right? So may not be needed. But if you are elderly at home, right, and you have traveling or some concern for you to move around, mobility issues, this kind of technology can make use of technology to help. All right? But of course, it's not in this kind of expensive place like you have a full set of scanning equipment at home, you know. Doesn't make sense at all. But it's actually more what are the viable use cases that we should need to look at. Now, ambulance is another case, and this is really the using holographics, you know, you can put the people together, right? They may be physically at different locations, but because of conflicting schedule, you know, sometimes you are in one city, the other person in another city, but you need to coordinate to get certain things done. This is actually using technology is possible to bring the people together, and also bring your family together. All right, so I hope I give you enough use cases to share with you, right? Thank you very much, right?
So can I maybe invite Prof. Guan and Dr. Ayesha to come and join me on the stage? So I know it's 5 p.m. and the weather outside is cozy for a nap, and the aircon seems a bit warm. But I just want to welcome everyone to SGInnovate again. For those who are here for the first time, I want to quickly share what SGInnovate is, what we do, and who I am, and our speakers will also introduce themselves. So SGInnovate is a private company owned by the Singapore government. We are a deep tech investor, and our role is to grow the deep tech ecosystem within Singapore. We've been around for about 3 years. And I think in the past 3 years, we've seen a huge push towards areas that we have been interested to kind of like encourage in Singapore. So we look at specific areas such as autonomous transport, development of AI technologies, looking at medical and healthcare and the areas that we can develop within that, and also Industry 4.0. I take charge of our overall investment team and all the investments internationally and within Singapore. So would love to have a chat with you later if there's something interesting that we can share with you. So on to our panel. So today we're going to talk about, let's see where we are. Okay, I'll look here. So our topic today is on, hello? Yeah, much better. So our topic today is on disruptions of 5G and data-driven technologies and applications. So before we start, can I just find out in the audience how many here are entrepreneurs, investors, folks from enterprise, researchers. So where is everyone else from? Students? Students? Government? Corporates? There's 3 of you, 4 of you. Okay, so where's everyone else from? Okay. Okay. The reason why I want to ask is we want to make sure that the discussion now is relevant to what you want to hear. So we've heard a lot about kind of like the use cases and what's possible with 5G, right? And I think that's important. So today we brought together the academic perspective, the infrastructure provider perspective, and also the enterprise perspective, right? I would like maybe I'll get our panelists to perhaps share who they are and what they do. Let's start with Dr. Ayesha.
Hi everyone, I'm Ayesha Khanna. I am the CEO of ADDO AI. We are big data engineers and machine learning specialists. We build automation platforms for large telcos like Singtel and Ooredoo, transportation companies like ComfortDelGro and SMRT, and financial services companies like Sompo, Japan's largest insurance firm. So for a lot of our clients, including some that are interested in smart cities, 5G is a game changer. And I'd be really excited to discuss that with the panel and with you guys.
So as I said, my name is Neo, right? I'm from Huawei, 9 years, 8.5 years actually. So just now one thing I have not highlighted is we have an AI lab, 5G enabled, cloud enabled, AI enabled. So I saw a lot of end customer or corporate user here, right? You are startup, end user, research company, or whatever. We all welcome you to visit our lab, and you can actually collaborate with us on some of these actions, right?
I'm Beng, have been with NUS for 30 years, distinguished professors, a plumber. Plumber in the sense I build systems. As I said, we released Apache Singa, and also we released Fabric Sharp, much faster Hyperledger Fabric, and of course other systems. So we try to release the next one is what we call Singa Lite. Is Apache Singa the deep learning engine for the 5G environment.
Wow, that's really cool.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we've heard a lot about the use cases, right, and the potential areas where we're going. So I wanted to frame the discussion by starting with something that's always on the top of my head, which is infrastructurally, are we ready for 5G? Right, so where are we today? Right, how long do we need to get to a state where we are able to deploy some of the services, and how long will we take to get to a state where we can deploy all the services that we're thinking about, right? So feel free to, who would like to start?
Maybe I give a start, right? I think when you talk about 5G, we are the leaders in 5G, technology. So we always say that the technology is available now, which is true, right? We actually can do the end-to-end, be it the 5G core, to the transmission distributions, to the front, base station, and the Wi-Fi connectivities. So these are the full suites of product that today, if you really look at it, Huawei's already have them all. We already deployed a lot of these solutions in Korea. We are looking at about 500,000 base stations already deployed worldwide, 60 different contracts already signed. So when you talk about whether this technology is here, the answer is definitely yes. And then what about in Singapore, right? Singapore today, we still have some issue with the spectrums. Just now I mentioned to you the AI labs where we had a 5G network is we specially go to IMDA to get approval. They give us a 3.5 gigahertz C-band, and we are actually only allowed for that particular area to be enabled, right? So that is meant to help us to start really do the hands-on exploration on some of these 5G cases. So when you say whether is it real, whether infrastructure is ready, answer is yes. Is there anything that you can do today? Answer is also yes.
I think even though the infrastructure is ready technically, there's a long way for enterprises to go. We are dealing with some of the largest companies in Asia, and they're still struggling to make sense of the little data that they have. I mean, it's little compared to what 5G will bring. But also as AI and data engineers, we also don't know how to deal with edge computing, fog computing. We have to move away from the data lakes that we have been advising our clients on in the cloud and start to explain to them these new opportunities as well. So I think that there's a technical part to it and organizational and cultural resistance to it, which needs to be overcome.
Prof. Hui, so in your perspective, based on where we are today from an academic perspective, right, where do you think is the biggest challenge in terms of the deployment of infrastructure and kind of like what you foresee as the dream of 5G?
I have different agenda. I don't have to sell system, don't have to sell infrastructures. Although I have startup, we build systems. So when you look at 5G, you cannot hit whatever that has been promised. Even you look at today, suppose you really go and measure the bandwidth, latencies and so on, instead of 100 megabit per second, now it's about 20, 30 megabit per second, that's what you get. What's the problem with 5G? When you try to roll out 5G, the backhaul from the edge to the backbone will be problematic unless you upgrade that as well. And then the backbone itself, the fiber optics as well, will not be able to take the load. Don't forget, the 5G is only for the edge to the cell station. So how does the data going to be transmitted? Eventually, still have to transmit somewhere. And if these infrastructures is not upgraded, you're going to have nice edge devices, but you're not going to have that effect. This is real. So as I said just now, maybe 3 years as we upgrade slowly, but not next year, that's for sure. Even if today what you have is what you call the non-standalone mode, they just piggyback on the current infrastructures and try to provide the 5G experience.
Thank you. So this brings about an interesting concept around 5G, which is because 5G is not a fully hardware-based infrastructure, right? 5G is, I think a leap from a pure hardware-based infrastructure into something that's hardware with a lot of software, and that's where the optimization comes in. In your perspective, how does that change a way an enterprise or a startup thinks about deploying the technology within their products or services? And does it?
I mean, I think it's fundamentally a different way. And again, I'm coming to it from a data and AI perspective. Even though the algorithms are the same, you have to now understand how the data is going to be orchestrated, how it's going to be managed, and where where the real time is needed. You can do it at the edge. Otherwise, you have to go to the fog nodes, which are in the middle. And then for the long-term holistic computations, you would go right back to the cloud. So your use cases now are split into 3 different ways. Whereas right now, what is being done is when you go and ask people to work on AI and machine learning, is generally taken either on-premise to a data center or a cloud or some hybrid system. So that's one thing. And the second thing, which my panelists can also comment on, is Obviously, there is the issue then of data governance and security that nobody's prepared for, even in today's like 4G network.
My gut feel for enterprise, I mean, every few years, every 5 years, 10 years, there's a change, there's a refresh of technology. So enterprises will really look at, what is good for you, what is applicable to you, and then once you look at this technology, how do you going to adopt it? How are you going to enable your people, right, the staffs to be able to acquire the knowledge, acquire the skill set? So there's a talent development, there's a training portion, and with that, that groups of people who actually have the right skill sets now, how can they innovate? How can they build something that is really good for the company, right? Whether it's internally helping you to be more efficient or externally helping you to generate additional revenues. So these are actually all considerations. But to me, I think I look at enterprise like you need to constantly look out, for all this technology. I just share 4. In fact, if you look at some of the analyst reports, right, the technology, the new trend of technology is just not these 4. This is the 4 that, from Huawei perspective is important because this is where we are good in. You still have things like blockchain. You still have many other kind of technologies, right? So enterprises should come in to look at, what is good for them, what they need, because every enterprise is different, right? You will have different challenges, and then you will have different needs. So you really have to look at, what kind of technology that most suitable, and then of course getting the people ready, having the skill set acquired, and then based on the skill set, once you have that, how can you further innovate together? And then what kind of partner, can help you? And Singapore, we are very lucky that because the government has got many programs to help you guys, especially when you talk about adopting new technologies, right? You can go there, there's many funding subsidies that you can apply. And there are also many labs available, and then there are also experts available to help you, right? So these are all the resources you can leverage, that personally I felt, it can help you to better, improve in terms of the technology adoptions of your company.
And I just wanted to add that I totally agree with that. A lot of what we end up doing is when we go into companies for artificial intelligence, they just want to just use it for the sake of it. And it makes no sense. So a lot of in the beginning, we spend about a week or 2 just refining the use case. I cannot emphasize this enough, that without a semi-clear, because things change, a reason why you're doing it, otherwise it becomes very overwhelming. Any new technology becomes overwhelming. Even if you have a roadmap, you have to iteratively, in a very agile way, constantly have use cases and go forward. And it's the same with 5G, which we can talk later about. Retail as an interesting case study as well.
So last question about infrastructure. So you mentioned a great point around security, right? And as we move towards a backbone that has a huge reliance on software with 5G, what do you think are the necessary developments within cybersecurity? And what are the areas that people need to kind of pay attention to, build more products and services around to help us secure the network better?
For 5G, as said, because you have more devices, the density of connections, and because you have a D2D, device-to-device communications. So definitely the surface area for attack is getting much bigger. And because we're going to have network virtualizations, because of multiplexing at any layers, any verticals, you can have malicious or adversaries attack at any point. So this is a bit like when we argue about blockchain. Blockchain is, even if it's well used, is quite safe, which is not safe. It's a smart contract. Smart contract because the code is written by human. We often write codes and then we put in the logic errors, also errors that we introduce. For network, when you start to have network virtualizations, because we have SDN, software-defined network, or network functions virtualizations, depend on which we use, because NFV, then we use more commodity hardware to do the routing and so on. So all these layers will introduce points, more points for attack. So definitely more check-in, dynamic check-in, and also, of course, when you try to define a network, which slice I'm going to use, this slice is, for example, for fintech or for bank A from bank B and all those slices, then therefore we need to define it properly such that it's isolated, it cannot be attacked from other layers, cannot be attacked at different points. So definitely plenty of work to be done. Talking about application, that depends on what you are doing. The things that we hope to see is speed, latency. So lots of things will be affected. That depends. For example, if you are in fintech trading, collaborative trading, real-time trading, for example, a few friends try to trade together, that could become possibilities because it's real-time. AV, why we say AV will be affected because you're going to bring it down to 1 or 2 milliseconds. Human reactions is about less than 2. So you bring it down, then the AV autonomous cities, at this moment, most of the car is running at, those are AVs running at grade 3 or 4. Mostly cannot hit 4 or 4 plus. And 5 is the optimal target we're going to hit. So 5G will bring more informations, more AI information decisions from the base, the other areas to the car. So that will help improve the AI inside the car.
My perspective is this, because I'm in the IT lines for almost 30 years now, right? So in my earlier years, right, we have mainframe system. So the security focus is like protect all these assets, make it, everything is in the data center. And once you're in a data center, you put things like physical data, physical security, network security, application security, server security, you protect them, that way. Now, in the new era now, you realize that we have autonomous car. Autonomous cars are IoT. IoT is everywhere. All these sensors are active devices. Sensor data collector will then feed back to your central location. You do big data analytics, you do messaging of data, you do video analytics or that. How do you ensure these data are clean and it's not being tampered with, right? So those are the questions. And the biggest problem is all these assets is not in your data center now. It is scattered all over the place. It's actually in the areas where everybody have access to. So my gut feel is when you look at securities, right, when you design a product, you can actually have an initial anticipation of some of these security measures that you need to put in place to make it secure. But then when you actually roll it out, there will be a constant need to review and analyze and put in measures to help you to actually tighten up all these security issues. For example, if you look at Singapore, right, we have these portable mobile devices, right? Correct? Everybody start buying, and then it start caught fire, and then we start telling people, say, we need to have certification of battery, and then people got, got accidents, and the accident created problems, and now we say we ban it, right? So all these are measurements that at the initial stage when you build this technology, you cannot see, but as you apply, so you see today we think that there's these drones, right, that 5G is going to enable, right? There's this VR, AR, 5G is going to enable. There's this autonomous car, 5G is going to enable, right? But what kind of problem all this is going to bring is not so much technology issues, not so much on the IT security or CD security or OT security that you're looking at. It is actually when you put it onto the ground, what problem is going to generate, and there's a constant need for us to continue to track and then enhance and then protect. That is my view.
So I guess now we'll move into the more exciting parts, which is around kind of like the new industries that 5G could potentially create. I mean, you've shared a lot, right, in terms of all the potential, and I think there's a big focus around latency and speed, which is essentially like providing processing at the edge and allowing things to happen much faster, right? So based on the use cases that you provided, maybe could you share your favorite kind of like, what do you think is the biggest potential disruption that 5G provides to which industry, and potential new business ideas that you think could come out from this?
I can speak of one that we're speaking with a client right now, which is not like an innovative new idea, but it is very much needed, which is this area of e-commerce. And the idea of actually, there's so much retail that happens at airports, for example. But is it possible for somebody in the plane to actually wear those clothes or try them out or actually try different kinds of shades of makeup instead of And then right there, when you're relaxed, you can buy everything because of the instantaneous customization that it happens, and then you just go and pick it up at the airport. Now, this is a real use case that's, I think, very near term as soon as it becomes available, because the technology is there, the connectivity here is needed. Something with like autonomous vehicles and optimizing them, there's so many unintended consequences that could happen, and there's human lives at stake, that I think those will still take a little bit more time. So what we are seeing actually are kind of real cases where people are like, you know what, let's pilot this tomorrow.
New industry, I would think, first one is probably gaming. Because for 5G, when you look at the current standards, right, the enhanced MBB is already fixed. That one is more related to consumer. So gaming is actually one big industry. You know, for example, if you look at today, just like I mentioned about VR, right? There's still a need for you to have a box beside you, because all this graphic rendering is supposed to be there. Now with 5G, your latency is so low, you can put all these boxes back to the cloud. And we call this in our term called Cloud X. You know, and then I think Microsoft call it X Cloud. So we have a Cloud X and X Cloud. I think they're referring to the same thing, right? So ours is Cloud X, means cloud for everything. Okay? Meaning now you can push all these big, huge machines that you probably need to spend like thousands and thousands of dollars to purchase, putting at your home. Now you can just do a pay-you subscription to the cloud, and let it actually run there. The most important thing is, now my device, I don't need to have a very powerful Mate 30, you know, or the new Mate X or whatever. We can actually have a very low-end Y series of Huawei phones or whatever. And then the battery, if you do rendering on the device itself, it probably allow you to play only 2 hours. But because you put all these things to the back, right, now it's like doing a video stream. And you can actually extend the battery life just like watching videos to about 8 to 10 hours. So that is a kind of industry that I think 5G is going to change. You know, that's the first thing. Of course, when you talk about autonomous vehicle coming in, which are the company will first embrace this technology? I think company like Grab, Gojek, Uber, they will be the first few to jump in, all right? And then you're going to see a lot of these drivers disappear, you know, without jobs. Okay, so this is actually one scary part. But of course, to me, if you look at like 3G, 4G eras, right, they actually, each of the generations of this network actually created a new groups of this unicorn company. In fact, Grab, how it happens is because of, I believe, 4G and GPS, right? And then in 5G era, what is going to come in? I believe there will be certain robotic companies. Because with 5G, what you're talking about, Industry 4.0, robotic company, we have been engaging some robotic companies to work out some solution today in our lab. We felt that that is actually one niche areas that is going to make the automation parts, you know, very, very successful, right? So gaming, robotics, autonomous car side, I think you will have some change, but whether is it good for us, I'm not sure. But you are going to see groups or unicorn company, because today we have we have actually deployed almost 500,000 base stations, so the networks are there. And then what kind of application can you put on? Just now you saw the conference of technologies, right? It has got a lot of new things that you can do. And new things to human beings' mind, you know, I can think it in this way, you can think it in another way. So all the creativity will actually make some of these company, you know, successful. That is my view.
Prof, you've probably been looking at some of the long-term use cases, right? In terms of what's possible, in terms of the research that you've been doing. Are there particular areas that you think are really exciting that you know that you ask any of your research students to actually go and attack?
In terms of applications?
In terms of applications.
In terms of applications, that where the money is. So I guess fintech will be one of them. Entertainment will be another one. Whether EV and all those are more like for the big boys to worry about, just like for infrastructure, security, and all those are much harder to attack. So healthcare is one of the industry that will be improved by 5G. Just imagine the sensors, the wearables, and lots of communication, because the real-time communications is possible now, so the healthcare will be improved. Home care, healthcare, telemedicines, and all those. And entertainment, just imagine like today, you don't go to restaurant as much as before. For most, some of them just order the food, especially in big countries and e-commerce. So what happens to entertainment? Maybe you have real-time collaborative competitions and so on, and many other things are possible with the 5G. Crowd wisdom. Suppose today you just happen to have a case that we can't solve, and happens that you can get hold of some like Grab drivers, but now instead of Grab drivers could be doctors or other professions with certain grade, and then try to help to provide the input and so on. As I said, for example, collaborative trading could be one possibility. People collaborate to trade, to beat the market, and so on. So this is real time, like high frequency trading. But instead of just high frequency by itself, this is with a human in the loop computations. You have to inject the human knowledge into the systems instantaneously. Personalized AI will be a big thing in the future. Personalized database. Eventually, you carry your own healthcare records in your devices. You won't share, you take control of all your data, and eventually you may say, I don't want to let Facebook or any social network companies own my data. I want to be the one to say when I can sell the data, how the data will be used, or you want to use it, you have to pay me some money for the use of my data.
So between like the today that was just described by Teck Guan, right? What like possibilities in gaming, you know, and some of the collaborative features that we can see from 5G. What is needed to get to that point that you're talking about? Kind of like the future, right? Like in terms of being able to do, you know, healthcare, being able to do a full autonomy of V2X. How much time do you think is between us today and then?
Okay, the way that we usually look at it is we see what enterprise clients are interested in. So even today, everybody talks about AI, but if you go in and look at the companies that are always saying we're like tech companies now, but behind them, it's a big mess. So you need bold leadership and you need talent and skills, just as they said earlier. But what I'm finding interesting now is usually the way the AI and machine learning 3 years ago started was people just wanted magical use cases. Now they're thinking about the data. And in the 5G space, we're now seeing interest in use cases, POCs, pilots. So that's the first step. Then the second step is how do you organize your data around it? And the other thing we're seeing is from other countries in the Middle East and America and others, we're seeing cities give requests for proposals that include a 5G component or being prepared for 5G or setting up your data infrastructure in preparation for edge computing. So those are the signals that the market is already giving, which I think is quite positive.
To me, depending on the use case, like autonomous car, right? To tell you what I've seen during my last year visit to HQ in Shenzhen, just talking about the standards alone, we are talking about 500 people working on the autonomous car standards. They talk about the batteries, they talk about the navigation system, they talk about the safety, the cameras. There are many things that they look at, and the whole entire organization, when they come out, it's like 500 people, just not actually started looking at the car, how to implement, just looking at the standards. So that is the scale. So that is going to take a very long time for us to realize, right? Now, you saw the weighing machine just now, recognizing fruits, is actually one of the local company called DG. They know nothing about our product. When we first engage them, they say, this is a good technology, we want to come in and help. So we pass them all the documentation, the software development kits, the API, the resources that they need. Now, they are determined to get it done. So actually, the entire process for them to get this application set up is only within 3 months. So it all depends on what you're trying to achieve. Now, in this particular case, it's a very simple application. You just do certain object recognition, right? And then you get it done in 3 months' time. Autonomous car, because you are actually looking at using 5G networks, and that is really, safety issues. So that will definitely, have a longer period that you need to look at. Yeah, so I just want to show you these two extreme cases. One is really complicated, and the other one is very simple, right? And that probably give you a gauge in terms of how fast you can actually realize this journey.
If you ask me, it's a tough question. Just like 2013 when I was asked how many more years could we have AV, I said maybe 10 plus years. Even AV up to today is not quite ready. It cannot behave like human. Once it can't behave like a human, it cannot handle jaywalkers, cars that drive without any rules and so on. So for applications, suppose you are doing startup, I suggest you can start right away. Maybe take 3 years to develop your applications. By the time when 5G infrastructure is fully implemented, then your product will be ready. You just have to assume that you're going to get the speed based on some theoretical numbers. You just work on that. You don't have to worry about what protocol we use, because to you, if you are application programmers, developers, you do not have to worry, because all this networking stuff is transparent to you. Unless you are a network company trying to do network virtualizations for specific banks or for specific companies. Otherwise, what you worry about is, so long as my applications, I'm going to expect these latencies less than about 2 milliseconds, this bandwidth, amount of bandwidth, and so on. And therefore, you just based on that, develop your products. That is how all the accidental empires came about. When Microsoft became big, and there was a book called Accidental Empire. So there was some 30 plus years ago, how some big company didn't want to develop their own operating system, so subcontract out, and then someone else took it up.
I have to completely agree with that. I mean, we keep focusing on the speed, but at the end of the day, making sure that the data is usable, as you were discussing, and not polluted by cyber hacks, but also the models that you're using. That is very important. And that example about not knowing jaywalkers, what happened is when Uber killed a pedestrian, that's just ridiculous. And that is a human error and an algorithm error. No matter how fast the reaction time of the car is, if it doesn't recognize that, that's a big problem.
So maybe I'll just finish off with one question before we open it up to the floor. I have a lot of questions here. For those who have yet to submit your question, you can go to Slido. There's really a lot of questions, and you can vote like your favorite questions to be asked. Maybe the last one would be kind of like, so what is your hope or desire for the next 5 years in terms of the developments within 5G and for the use cases within the next 5 years?
Look, being in Asia, my two greatest desires of 5G are related to education and to healthcare. With the rapid urbanization that is happening, millions of people moving from villages in China, India, Indonesia to the cities, their basic hope is the lower cost of education, good education, which will now be available. And I don't mean just the Coursera's and the MOOCs. I mean literally, as you were seeing, a doctor is doing a surgery in England, and he's using VR, and you're also in the same surgical room with him, learning and also participating in it. That is the kind of thing that brings up an entire generation of poor people. And it's the same with healthcare as well. So I'm excited about that.
Next few years, my gut feel is that, you see today we have all these technologies about AI, we have these 5Gs, right? How are you going to make use of it? So actually, to me, I look at it is that when a technology is become matured in the infrastructure level, the next logical things to do is to create an ecosystem. Ecosystem in terms of getting the people knowing the technology trained, so that they know how this technology can be used, and then using this technology to innovate, and then with this innovation, make this particular application software available to the market, and making people wanted to use it. Today, we have not seen many 5G killer apps. You know what are the 4G killer apps today? When you day one, every morning when you wake up, what do you do? Facebook, WhatsApp, who send me, right? These are the killer apps. I play games, right? So some of the games that I really play, because those are the killer apps to me, right? But may not be to you, but social media, right? Those are the killer apps. Now 5G today, we have not come to a stage where the minute we open up the phone, we want to have VR, AR, or something else, right? So what are all these killer apps that is up and coming? We don't know. So that is where the ecosystem, I think, is very important. And Singapore, today we see AI, right? AI as a national priority, right? So we are trying to use AI to do that. And I mean, actually last month, we worked with MHA. MHA, because of this soldier bring the guns out of the camp, so they wanted us to see, hey, can your AI help me to recognize guns, these people carrying guns. But my highlight to them is, by the time he's able to recognize the gun, when the person bring out, it's too late. Correct, right? It's too late. When you show the gun, it's too late, right? So how do you detect, like, maybe the nozzle, the trigger, or certain parts that is hiding in the back, or certain shapes that resemble, that this may be a potential risk? Now, the AI, you need algorithms to help you to do that. So this algorithm, we don't know who is able to provide, right? But what I'm seeing is, as you move on this journey, you realize that there's a lot of exploration needed for this technology, and what is right, can be used, and that form the bigger ecosystems that is needed to help us to keep that technology around. Because if you're 5G without killer apps, everybody invest, become a hype, right? And then no business case. Thank you very much. Tomorrow you don't see it anymore.
Prof.
In terms of applications, I would say healthcare. Healthcare will be, as I said, will be improved greatly. And of course, fintech and other applications. Now just take a specific, make a specific answers to the AI. If you are in IT, you know that AI or machine learning is not that easy to apply. And quite often it depends on what data you use to train the model, what model you design. What we call, there's a data prior problem. In fact, the theorems of no free lunch was introduced in 1977, saying that if you have no advantage by using the data, all algorithm will give you average results. So today, when you see what are the good results they have, it's mainly image recognitions, speech recognitions, because plenty of data used to train. Why AI is not so well used in trading, in banking, in healthcare? It's a much more complex data. It's not just pixels. You have different attributes, thousands of features, which features will lead a person to renal failure, for example, and so on. Those are much more complex than these pixels as formed together. It looks like an edge, and edge that forms together looks like a dog or a cat. It's much more complex than that. So such AI is not quite there, although we are working towards it, but we still cannot get the accuracies that most professionals are looking for. For other applications, it depends on, as I said, depends on the need. By the time, definitely, there will be plenty of applications. Businesses will be disrupted by 5G. Just like today, every big company wants to be a digital bank. Every bank wants to be a tech company.
Yeah. One of the things that I wanted to add over here is that one of the complications as we enjoy the speed and we enjoy the more complicated AI algorithms over time is that we, as citizens, don't really understand what's going on. And some people say we don't understand how a plane flies, yet we trust the pilot and we trust the company with it. But we do need some kind of governance measure. Somebody needs to keep an eye on how things are done to avoid things like bias or malicious intent or manipulation. And again, I think this comes down to the education, where I say we have so much resentment against some social media platforms, because of fake news and fake data, but that was certainly not the intent of the people who made it. It's one of the unintended consequences. And the people we need to educate are the data scientists and the machine learning engineers who traditionally in IT have been vessels of business requirements, where you just give them stuff and they just like code, like robots. But we need to give them that authority and power and critical thinking frameworks so they can say, stop, no, this is not the right thing, or this doesn't make sense, or this has bias.
I think that's a great way to end this part of the discussion, and I really agree in terms of the trust and integrity of platforms, you know, and 5G being a part of the infrastructure of the new generation. We need to make sure that, you know, companies are designing products and services with that in mind. And I think we've learned enough in the past couple of years to understand what that means. I just hope that people have the right gumption and conviction to actually work on that. So we have a lot of questions. There are some questions that have high votes, but I think we've answered some of that already. Let me just quickly. I have it here. Oh, you want to see it up there? Can you flash the questions on the screen? Okay, while he's doing that, let me just ask, let's see. Okay, well, let's see. Let's go to this one. One other feature about 5G, besides the higher bandwidth, is localization and context awareness. What do you think are the killer applications of 5G utilizing this feature?
Like I say, you know, some of the application, when you talk about localization, you're talking about GPS, you know, all these controls, right? So when you really look at application, the way I look at it is really like autonomous car, right? Because some of these chips that you put into the car itself, the location is very important. Because the evolution of technologies it will be in such that once you are able to make some of these technologies available, you are able to identify some of these cars' location at a very precise, manner. You can actually avoid some of these collisions, right, between the vehicle itself. So to me, I look at it as, you know, it is a long journey for autonomous car, but whether you consider that as a killer apps or not, I'm not sure. But the location, you know, services is actually very important, you know, in that perspective.
Yeah, I mean, and that's where the context awareness is not, it's not just the car, right? It's also the other sensors and the traffic sensors, the weather sensors. So context is then aggregated and orchestrated from many different sources, and that in itself requires some kind of thinking.
So, okay, there are two questions around blockchain. So we have a blockchain expert up on stage. So I wanted to combine both of the questions, right? So in this case, how does 5G accelerate blockchain adoption? Are there any use cases enabled by 5G for blockchain? And you know, for Teck Guan, how do you see the use of blockchain in the new confluence? Is that Prof?
We have tested blockchain on edge devices such as a handphone. It works okay. It's pretty what we call green computations of blockchain. But the thing is that you cannot use your edge device as the node that serves, that put in all the logs, but you can use as a node to check, to update. So if you talk about blockchain, what would that be? Blockchain now forms the underlying technology for most of those who want to go into digital banking. Digital banking as defined is not supposed to have ATM and can have, in fact in Singapore, I believe the definition is only one ATM or one outlet. The rest have to work with other vendors to dish out the money. For example, I want to take out cash, who do I take it out from? I have to take it out from the vendors that the digital bank collaborate with, taxi, shops, and so on. So that can use the blockchain. Blockchain can use that for asset control, asset management that promote transparency, accountability, data provenance, as well as data governance. So that, again, will help to improve the adoptions of blockchain. The problem of blockchain is that the TPS is very low. Transaction per second is very low. It hits about 1/8 of what you get from the Visa-like transaction processing. The most we could hit is about 7,000, whereas for Visa's benchmark, it could be 20 to 30,000. Of course, there are many ICOs claims that they can hit huge number, but those, I'm not sure how they count. But suppose you want to simulate a bank transactions or normal OLTP, like those database transactions, that would take some time.
Thank you. Next question. We are still in the early stage of implementing 5G, yet China is already working on 6G, right? So, Prof, you mentioned about 6G, and so what is the difference? Right? Is speed the only differentiator between 5G and 6G based on the current standards today?
Apart from speed, there could be other features that will be introduced. For example, 5G is again 4G is what we have is the network virtualizations. You're going to have slices on network, and of course you have much bigger bandwidth. For 6G, just started, so I doubt we can say much about 6G. So we still have to work on the protocol, on the technology. For example, 5G rides a lot on massive MIMO, multiple input, multiple output, duplex, multiplex, those of terminologies that are very common in 5G.
Next question. We're going really fast here. As 5G, this question I think is meaningful. As 5G needs huge and continuous investment to be used at its full potential, wouldn't that increase the gap between rich and poor areas and communities and countries? So, like, countries like Indonesia, in India, in China, like, wouldn't the rural areas be the last areas that will implement 5G? Or am I wrong? Right, and how does that enhance the lives of the folks that is supposed to benefit the most?
Maybe I take this question. 5G for some countries, right? If you really look at today, some of the countries, like say in Manila itself, the city is pretty much already all fully occupied. Their bandwidth today for 4G is like 1 megabyte, for upload and download, very small. Now, to be able to actually improve this, you need to have more base station. More base station, you need to have more fiber. Fiber means right away. Right away means you need to pay money, right? To acquire the lands or to actually have the bypass, to dig the ground, to lay this thing in there. Today, they hit this problem that, that's too costly for the telco. So to effectively improve, the speed is, the 5G can come in, because 5G today, you are looking at this thing called a wireless fiber. Wireless fiber means, because the wireless network the speed is so fast that actually you can actually replace a fiber. So you don't need to have the right of way, don't need to dig the ground, you just put a base station there, you will effectively improve the speeds, right? So that is actually one angle of how to provide the people with a better bandwidth. And better bandwidth, of course, means better revenues. In the case in the cities like Jakarta and Manila, right, these are not really, say, money issue, right? It's actually more whether you are able to provide better bandwidth for the large population there. Now, in the rural area, again, it's the same thing, right? If you look at rural area, mountain, long distance, you run fiber, it's going to cost you a lot of money, right? So what happened with this, we call this technology called WTTX, right? Which is actually, you can ride on top of a 5G, and that allows you to provide per household maybe 30 megabit per second, which is good enough for you to watch a HD video. And this previously may not be possible, without the 5G technology. And today, we see that this 5G technology can actually help you to bridge this gap. And that means we can actually bring these connectivities to bigger population worldwide, right, at a reasonable cost. Because in the current stage, right, most of the telco, when they want to invest on infrastructure, they really look at the ROI. And for rural area, there's no ROI at all. So, and then there will be negative, and most of the telco will not want to actually invest there. But with 5G come in, it's making this possible.
And I also think that, we have to realize that 70% of the world's population in 2050 is going to live in cities. So there's always been a discrepancy between cities and villages. And with some of the technologies you mentioned, one can try to bridge the gap, but one can't stop the rollout in cities because they are the economic capitals, the talent hubs of the world. They're the new centers of power, especially the mega cities where more than 20 million people live. So just in those themselves, we will see such benefits of rolling out new technologies that I think it's worth it to go down that route.
Thank you. Okay, we're almost near our time, but there's a question that I really wanted to ask because it's something that I've been reading about quite a bit, which is the issue of health and safety of 5G. There are very different views online about how safe 5G is. There are, old reports that are controversial. There are new reports where, they say it's going to fry your brain. So based on what you know as of today, how safe is 5G for humans, for animals, and just in general, right? How does it impact, our physical selves?
I remember I read some reports almost like 10 years ago that 4G signals will fry your brains, right? How many of you carry mobile phone here today? Everybody carry once, right? So does it really matter? Do you get cancer? Nobody can prove that, right? Is that issue? So to me, I look at it is there are certain preventive measures I always told my kids, right? If you are sleeping, don't sleep with your phone, on your chest or beside you, right? Just put it a bit further away, right? So these are some precautions that you're going to make. Now, let me highlight one example, like millimeter wave. Now, millimeter wave, people say, wow, so high speed, right? You will penetrate your body, you'll create a lot of problems, health issue. Now, that signal, once you stand in front of the receiver, the signal got cut off. Your device will not be able to receive that signal for millimeter wave if you have a person blocking. So our human body actually is very strong, right? You block the signal, right? And then it doesn't really penetrate you. So that is actually one observation technically. Now for the C bands, the 3.5, 1.8, all those, we have been exposing it for generations, right? I would say, for the last how many years? Last 20 years, 30 years? Yeah. So mathematically, I mean, when you look at some of these historical issues, right? Does it really create a problem? I don't know. But does it bother us? I don't think so, right? Because all of us knows the problems, and then we continue to use it. So if you are in the 5G era, you have 5G phone. If you don't like to use a 5G technology, you think that there's a health issue, you can downgrade it to 4G. For that matter, downgrade to 3G. Then that will solve your health issue, right? But is that something that you're going to do? I don't know.
Prof, is there any research that I have not seen that has?
There is so far, of course, there are two views. Some things that opine that because of densities of the cell stations, the antennas, that will affect the health. But something might be too small to affect. So these are the two views. As what has been said by others is that because this will take a long time to monitor. So everyone should behave like emu or ostrich. So we just have to hide our head inside the sand and forget about the risk.
Thank you. So I guess there is no verdict on this. So yeah, buyer beware. Okay. Our time is up, but there's one question with a lot of votes that I didn't want to ask because I thought we had answered it along the way. But maybe I'll use it as the final question, which is, and maybe don't need to answer so long, right? If you could say in a couple of words, right, which are the 5G use cases that you would personally put some money in? I give you each $1 million, right? Which 5G use case would you invest in the immediate term? In the medium term and long term. Okay, let's start with the immediate term first. Okay, like now.
Who put these questions? I want to see who are the.
So there are 6 people who voted this up. I want to see your faces. Okay, so there's only one there. That's it. Okay. Nobody wants to admit. Alamak. 2. Okay, good. At least we have 2 lah. So, Prof, short term.
As I said, 4G, the recent craze about short video.
Short videos.
TikTok, So that similar thing will happen to 5G. 5G will bring in new entertainment, new things that move from the real world to the edge devices. That is going to stay at home, not going out, and participate in all sorts of activities through your mobile devices. So if you think of that, that will create plenty of applications.
Short term, you know my answer, right? Cloud X. Right. Everything moves to the cloud because I'm doing cloud, right? But truly, when you look at it, is because today the 5G really the standard is already mature and close is on the enhanced MBB, and the biggest application that we see now that is really booming in the market is really gaming, and the 5G gaming is along the way. We actually have integrated. We actually recruited 2 gaming companies already, on our platform. We tested. These are super well done graphic rendering, and very good experience. We just now Kelvin mentioned about Haidilao, right? So yeah, it's one of the company that we are working with. But Haidilao, all of you went there, right? The steamboat, wow, eat everything, and then when you wait, you got all this entertainment. So we are doing the entertainment part, putting like Street Fighter games, on a 5G network that give them really for those kind of, when you're playing a game 4K, 4K experience. So now not every Haidilao is going to have that now because of money. So you're going to expect like maybe 1 or 2. Please visit them, through that, so that they can do the second shop with the 5G gaming, and then the third one, the fourth one, and then every one they build, I think is better for us, and also better for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think anything direct to consumer that they can do on their mobile phone or a small device, such as gaming and entertainment, that will take off. Enterprises tend to be slower, but I think that's when we'll see like citywide infrastructural change.
And then, last one for the long term. What would you invest in?
I would invest in healthcare.
For me, it's definitely the autonomous car and drones, because this is really to change the industry a lot.
And Prof, final word?
Healthcare.
So thank you everyone for sitting here with us. We thank our panelists and also Prof and Teck Guan for your presentations. We'll be hanging out for a while here, so if you guys have more questions, more areas to talk about, feel free to approach the speakers. Thank you so much for being here. Enjoy the rest of your week. Yes, sure, of course. Let's see. Yeah, I'll do a selfie. My hands are gone.
Last week was a crazy week. Were you everywhere?
I didn't get enough sleep the whole week.
Where you were?